Welcome to Counterpoint. I'm your host, Tanya Granick-Allen, and there's a lot we're going to discuss today because we have our current issues panel with us, who we will go through the headlines, what's happening in the media, and dissect them so that you can understand what the sides of the story are. Joining me today to help with that discussion is Hannah Salamon-Vegh and Brock Stephenson, both political commentators. You've seen them on the show before. And we're going to talk about many issues. We're going to talk about Jeff Bezos and what his yacht is up to, what happened at the Super Bowl that LA won, but what actually happened and what were the celebrities doing? We're going to talk about the Beijing Olympics. Are you watching them? Who's watching them? And we're going to talk about, of course, the trucker convoy and the continual plaguing of financing issues they have with GiveSendGo, GoFundMe, and who knows what other platforms might join in. So let's get into that discussion. Again, thank you, Hannah and Brock, for joining me today. Okay, we'll jump right in. Let's talk about Jeff Bezos. So Jeff is building a massive yacht. And for those who don't know who Jeff Bezos is, he's the head of Amazon. He's building a massive yacht in the Netherlands. Hannah, what's going on with his yacht?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So he's building a yacht in a canal in the Netherlands, and it's supposed to be the biggest yacht that has ever been created in the world or exists in the world right now. But the issue is that there's only one way to get out of that canal, and that's underneath this bridge, which was built in 1927. A historical bridge now. It's not currently in use, but his yacht is too tall to go underneath the bridge. So he has said that he wants the bridge dismantled so he can take his yacht through and then put the bridge back together, and he's going to pay for all of that. But there's a few thousand people in the Netherlands have signed a petition saying they do not want that bridge dismantled because it's historical, and they feel like he's not above everyone else and he should build his yacht somewhere else or make it smaller. So that's kind of what's going on with that. I mean, I'm all for people having lots of money and making it, and through private business and through entrepreneurship and everything like that. But it just seems a little bit kind of audacious at the fact that he expects even history to be taken down in order for his bridge, yacht to go through. So we'll see the response, I guess, and what the local officials decide.
So you're right to point that there has been a major outcry, and not even just a few thousand. So far, I think the petitions, the signatures on a petition to say stop the dismantling of the bridge, stop, I guess, Jeff Bezos' yacht from getting out. It's up to 30,000 people. And again, this bridge is in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, which, ship makers, the shipbuilders, and, again, they get out through the canal, but Jeff's boat is just too big. Seeing what's going on in the world with COVID, and there are a lot of allegations that this is like, elites versus the proletariat and what's going on. Is this tone deaf? Is this the right time? What do you make of all this, Brock?
I think that the real challenge we've got is that they said the bridge would never be dismantled again when it was repaired last time. It's politicians backtracking on what they originally promised. And as 1980s pro wrestler Ted DiBiase would say, everyone has a price for the $1 million man. And in this case, Jeff Bezos is going to pay to dismantle this bridge. These folks are going to be upset. He's going to get his $500 million yacht out into the ocean and sail away, maybe go back into space again. Who knows what he'll do? But Amazon was enabled by all these folks that were sitting at home on their iMacs at their cottage and shipping parcels to themselves every day. So it's not like he doesn't have the money, but the little guy's not being listened to yet again.
Okay, but Brock, let me ask you a question. So if I were to build a mega yacht for myself, probably one of the first questions that I assume this would have come up at some point in the planning process. It's like, you're building a home, you can only build it yay high because that's what the bylaw says. Here, it's not a bylaw, you actually have a physical structure that is going to bar you from passing. Why wasn't this resolved when the plans were being drawn up? Why are the shipbuilders even going down the path of building this ship knowing that they would have to dismantle a bridge in the process and get permission for it?
There was some poor thinking involved. I'm sure there must be a shipyard somewhere in Jeff Bezos' home country of America that can build him a mega yacht. I'm sure there's another shipyard somewhere in Europe. There must be somewhere where they could have built this ship and not had to take down a bridge. But when you're Jeff Bezos, maybe the rules don't apply.
So what do you think the solution is here, Hannah? What should happen?
Well, maybe he can have it built partially and have it be able to still move, and so they can go under the bridge and then finish the rest of it later. But I'm sure there must be some other solution in terms of the building process that does not require the bridge to be dismantled.
Well, I think if the city goes along with this dismantling of the bridge and the protesters don't have their way, there will be far fewer Amazon shipments shipped into Rotterdam, Netherlands. We're going to pick up other topics on this current events panel in just a few moments. Please stick with us. Welcome back. We're continuing with our current events panel, and joining me is Hannah Salamon-Vegh and Brock Stephenson. So I don't know if you're both Super Bowl or football fans, but the Super Bowl just happened this past weekend, and very well attended. The Cincinnati Bengals, the LA Rams, the LA won on their home turf because it was held in LA. But if you watched carefully, or maybe not even that carefully, you'll notice there were tens of thousands of fans, mostly unmasked, in a stadium crammed close together. And among those fans included numerous Hollywood celebrities, including a political elite from California, who are very keen on making sure we all wear masks, except not that day. Come on, this is a shocker. After all the scandals of people breaking their policies, I'm surprised that this actually happened. And I'll give you first go. What's wrong with these people?
Well, I guess it's showing that they are more interested in virtue signaling and, going online and, saying don't be in, ASS, wear a mask. Like one of the celebrities that was there, she was posting that type of stuff previously, and there she is with her partner not wearing masks. Or, Ellen was there with her partner as well. And at Ellen's show, you have to be all masked if you're in the audience. But Ellen and her partner don't have to be masked when they're there at the Super Bowl. Even the children in the orchestra there behind the singers, they all had to wear masks. I think that we're, in many places in the US, you don't have to wear masks anymore. In LA, you do. Here in Canada, mask mandates are starting to be lifted. So I don't think really the issue is whether people are wearing masks or not. It's the people who are enforcing these rules and pushing them on everyone else when they go in their own lives and do not follow their own rules, including Eric Garcetti, the mayor of LA, was there close to people not wearing his mask while he's going every day telling parents they still have to mask their children for school. So that's a massive, massive issue. Another thing is, I'm not sure why more Canadians were not upset by watching the Super Bowl when here in Canada, until maybe later this week, you can only have 10 people in your own home and you can only have gatherings of 25 people. So isn't it kind of feeling a little bit like you're missing out when you're getting to look at this beautiful gathering in the States there in LA of all places, but here in Canada, we still can't gather in sizes even near that capacity?
Well, I feel like it's become normalized. I remember, I guess it was early last fall, seeing, obviously Florida has been open for so long, but seeing Texas and the baseball league and the huge stadiums and all these people. And you're right, it's sort of like the child pressed up against the glass window looking out at the streets of all the kids playing, saying, oh, why can't I play too? Yep. I think we've become numb to it here in Canada. Okay, now we have this trucker convoy, let's see what happens. But you're right. But I want to get back to the rules for me, rules for thee kind of thing, Brock. Again, LA mayor, you brought it up, Hannah. The LA mayor is there. He day in, day out says, wear the mask. This is the rule. This is the mandate. And he is not wearing a mask at the Super Bowl, at his own city. How do you justify that?
In the semifinals, they had the home game as well. He was there taking his mask off for photos, supposedly. Told people he was holding his breath while his mask was off. I think the public are tired of holding their breath, waiting for the rules to relax. And I think California, which had some of the tightest restrictions in America, not as tight as most of Canada, has had some wild outbreaks themselves. The governor got in trouble for going for dinner during one of the previous shutdowns. The mayor is misbehaving. I think Americans have moved on. They started getting vaccinated December of 2020, earlier than Canadians. Most of the people that have their second doses had them by last summer, and America has moved on. Dealing with COVID has become a different scenario than here in Canada. People determine their own risk. Previous sporting events have had a limited masking. The rules are there, but people just aren't following them. People choose whether or not they're going to obey the current rules in place in America. They don't seem to be enforced. And it's not like there's any clear sign that there's a vaccine coming for Delta or Omicron or a nasal spray that'll reduce transmissibility. I think where we're at in America is, if they have a rule in place, they see it as they're going to be in place forever now. So let's not have the rules.
So these are very good points. Hannah, with Omicron, I think that sort of took people's blinders off. Where, here some people believe they did their duty, they got their 2, 3, sometimes maybe even 4 jabs. And here, yet again, they got COVID again. And the masks didn't seem to help. The jabs didn't really help in terms of transmissibility. Is everybody just done? Is this like a global thing? I mean, obviously at the Super Bowl, it looked like even the mayor of LA was done. Are people done? We have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think most average people are over with this type of stuff. And pretty well everybody has either gotten vaccinated or had COVID. So what are we to be afraid of anymore? We got the boogeyman, we're fine, and let's move on. My main issue will always be the politicians who are forcing these rules on us, never seeming to listen to the people, but they themselves can do whatever they want. So either you make the rules and follow them, or you get rid of the rules and you live your life freely, which everyone should be allowed to do now.
Okay, well, Americans tend to punish those politicians at the polls, so we'll see what happens at their midterms. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Welcome back. We're continuing with our current issues, and joining me is Hannah Salamon-Vegh and Brock Stephenson, both political commentators. So the Olympics is underway, or maybe you didn't even know it was happening because maybe you're not tuning in. I mean, we have our own kind of drama here in Canada with the trucking convoy, and that seems to distract many of the viewers. However, the Olympics have happened. Now, I have chosen to not watch the Olympics this year. My father's an escapee from communism. I cannot support that. That is my view. That's what I've decided to do. Seems that I am actually not alone. Polls have shown that there's a decreased viewership of Olympics this year, not just in Canada, but also in America. Hannah, was it right to have the Olympics in China?
Well, I just think it's shocking that the Olympics are in China right now. I don't know how China got that. I guess they maybe got that contract or whatever a while ago before COVID happened. But I'm surprised that so many countries are okay with sending their athletes there after the whole COVID outbreak. We still don't have enough answers of where it came from and all the types of things regarding their labs. And also, there's continuing ongoing human rights abuses there. I mean, even the 2 Michaels that were confined were imprisoned there, and the tennis player that disappeared, I'm not sure if she's come back now, but even very weird things going on during the Olympics of like one journalist was taken off of live TV by Chinese communist bodyguards, and athletes have been complaining about the treatment there, the lack of food, things like that. So it just seems really weird that this is happening in China right now, when China is at the center of so many human rights abuses and issues right now. But I'm glad that a lot of people are deciding not to watch the Olympics, and hopefully that'll put pressure not only on China, but for other countries that are going to host the Olympics, that they have to have better human rights practices before they're able to host the Olympics.
But I feel so badly in some way. Of course, as I mentioned, I'm not watching them, but I feel terribly because there are some amazing athletes that Canada produces, especially in the Winter Games. We're a winter country, and to not be able to partake in their joy and in their competition, it in some ways breaks my heart. But and then one has to ask, like, was Canada being responsible? Are we being responsible to our athletes, to our amateur athletes, by sending them into a communist country to compete in games amid the COVID crisis? Was this the right move? Brock, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's an unusual mix that we decided on a diplomatic boycott, so our politicians didn't go over, but we sent our athletes over into a place where they could be quarantined for up to 5 weeks if they test positive. The NHL decided not to go, in part because of that. Superstar Connor McDavid went out and said it was unsettling that people from foreign countries could be kept against their will in China for 5 weeks. I think that the Olympics are an expensive spectacle. Part of the reason the audience is down is because it's the middle of the night. It's prime time on the West Coast, but the events start at 11 p.m. Eastern time in Ontario and Quebec. I think that that's part of the challenge. Also, other than women's hockey and curling, Canadians aren't that into many of these winter sports, even though we have the best athletes. I think that the challenge with China is that they're obviously a communist country that doesn't believe in fair treatment for everyone. The competition for the bid had no democracies competing to host this Olympics. The IOC is struggling to find hosts. And I think that at this point, even Vladimir Putin's unhappy with the Chinese, and he was one of the few people that went to the games, but no one went to greet him when his plane arrived. So I think we've got the whole world fighting against China, but sending our athletes there and letting them use Canadian and American and global athletes to highlight their country.
Well, and I think, Hannah, you brought up a very good point when we discussed the two Michaels. Again, that was the apex of diplomatic issue with Canada and China between the two countries. They detained these men unjustly, in my opinion, and probably the majority of Canadians' opinion, and they were thankfully recently returned. So we just came out of this very delicate diplomatic situation, and now we're sending and paying good money to send all these lovely amateur athletes who've trained for 4 years into the midst of this. How can I be sure that none of them will be detained? Of course, we have seen that certain athletes who've tested positive for COVID had gone into quarantine. I remember watching on Twitter, and I regret I didn't have the clip to show you, a Belgian skier who was in tears that she thought she was being brought back to the village. In fact, she was in an ambulance. She didn't know where she was going. And then they brought her for an undetermined amount of time into quarantine. It was shocking. It was shocking. 30 seconds, Hannah.
Well, yes, I 100% agree with you how shocking that is. But here in Canada, we've had Canadians quarantined against their own will, taken away to hotels by our government. So I think that China is, even through COVID, most particularly, has infiltrated a ton of countries and has exerted so much control and so much power that it's really hard to stand against them. If they want to have the Olympics there, they're going to have the Olympics there. And I think a lot of people have been desensitized, unfortunately, to these types of human rights abuses because of what's gone down during COVID.
We're going to pick this up in just a few moments. Welcome back. If you've been following any of the news headlines in the last week, you probably have come across an Ontario court injunction against Give, Send, Go. Now, who's Give, Send, Go? This was the replacement crowdfunding platform, if you will, after GoFundMe suspended, almost took away and redirected about $10 million of funds, but has now allegedly refunded them all. So Give, Send, Go steps in and said, no, we'll fundraise for you, Trucker Convoy of Canada. Don't you worry. But now the Ontario Premier stepped in. Brock, why don't you start us off? What happened here and where's this headed?
So what happened was originally we had GoFundMe, a campaign from a woman who has affiliations with the Maverick Party and Alberta and Provincial Rights Party that's run federally. They had $4.5 million in the bank in late January. GoFundMe said, how are you going to spend this money? It piqued interest amongst Canadian politicians. Everyone panicked. By the time it got to $10 million a few days later, they shut it down. We're going to donate the money to other causes. At the same time, Give, Send, Go, which is another crowdfunding platform, went out there and said, we'll raise your money. Everyone panicked again, got some injunctions in place to prevent them from spending the money. A lot of the people have moved on to Telegram now. These folks have been in Ottawa for 3 or 4 weeks. They're giving up their livelihoods. They're stuck in downtown Ottawa. The ones that want to leave can't because the police don't have control of the situation. And we've got all these folks that are protesting. They've had provincial governments let up rules across the country in many places. And the situation is stuck. We've got all these issues where the federal government's considering the Emergencies Act, and it's a giant mess. No one's taken charge. And that's why we're stuck in this situation as we are, with folks who are protesting and being treated like they are fringe radicals, even though they're now supported by a larger percentage of the population. In January alone, there was over a 15% shift in support of public opinion towards the critics.
So one thing that these crowdfunding platforms like Give, Send, Go and GoFundMe do is they actually bring an international spotlight on an issue happening. And that's what happened. That's what happened here. So folks from around the world, it's not just Canadians donating, internationally they're donating. Hannah, is it just that an organization who, alleges that, this is the convoy, the trucker convoy, they say they're going to give the money to the truckers, this is where it's headed, but then they get everything, their accounts frozen, or this injunction was put in place. How did Give, Send, Go react?
Well, it's so Give, Send, Go said they're not going to be listening to the injunction because they're not based in Canada. So therefore the court injunction doesn't apply to them. But it's fascinating how our politicians can get an injunction from the courts immediately to deal with squelling any uprisings about the mandates. But the courts have not been responded favorably, in favor of any of the people challenging the mandate. So it's very interesting to see, I think, some corruption going on in the courts. But beyond that, I think that it's setting a very dangerous precedent that if the government doesn't agree with a certain GoFundMe page or whatever, it can be shut down overnight. And it's interesting because none of the BLM GoFundMe pages were ever shut down. And the BLM riots, especially in the States, were incredibly violent, burning cities down, causing tremendous damage to businesses. And the trucker convoy has been incredibly peaceful in Ottawa. And they're fighting for freedom of choice for everyone. And their page is shut down.
Right. And, there have been a lot of concerns of potential violence erupting, and I haven't really seen any. Okay, there was the Ambassador Bridge blockade. There were a lot of military-looking police, but, no shots were fired. Nothing really happened. The only negative I saw was in Winnipeg when a rogue protester, anti-convoy protester, mowed down 4 people. Thankfully, they all survived. So is this a sign that these international groups or that governments are now trying to be politically active? Like, are they becoming the judge as to what causes are right and what are just? Is that what the future holds? We have 30 seconds, Hannah.
Well, so yes, I think so. And also talking about China infiltrating various governments around the world, this is the social credit score system. So like your bank account can be shut down, your emails can be shut down, like happened to Jordan Peterson. All these different types of things. You can't use PayPal anymore if your beliefs are not deemed to be appropriate. So it's very interesting to see this trend happening. And I think it's going to push a lot of people to more alternative sources, to having your own servers, that type of thing, so that we can raise money, or people can raise money how they see fit instead of being shut down by the government all the time if it doesn't agree with the government's direction.
Okay, well, thank you both so much for joining me. This is obviously a very complicated issue. I don't know if the truckers will ever see that money. I don't know if they'll ever be let go the funds, but we will keep our eye on that and all sorts of issues. Thank you for joining us at Counterpoint.